The king in the north!
Dracarys.
I will hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Thousands of years ago, Valyrians stumbled on the first dragon eggs in the mountains of the 14 Fires. I cannot imagine shepherds could hatch dragon eggs and bind such creatures to their will, but whatever aid they must have had is lost to history. Every educated person knows how the Dragon Lords then conquered most of the known world, breaking the ancient Giscari Empire, enslaving a continent, building roads and bridges that still stand today, though the art that made them is lost. An empire of marvels and misery. And now what is left of Valyria? A smoking wasteland. Ash.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Icenfire here, and welcome to the channel. And today, we are going to be diving into part 2 of our 3-part series covering all things Old Valyria. From the rise of the Valyrian Freehold and their wars with the Giscari Empire, to the cataclysm that ended the Valyrian Empire known as the Doom of Valyria, and how House Targaryen narrowly avoided death by fleeing to the island of Dragonstone just years before the Doom. And last, but certainly not least, we take a look at the Century of Blood, a period of time in Essos when all-out war erupted after the Doom of Valyria left a massive power vacuum on the continent. In part 1, we took a look at exactly how Valyria rose to power in the first place, going from a simple shepherd colony to the most powerful kingdom in the history of the known world, and how exactly they rose to power in their bloody wars against the Giscari Empire. And in part 2, we are going to be taking a look at the Doom of Valyria, the cataclysm that ended the Valyrian Freehold, and what potentially could have caused it. Also, how the Targaryens ultimately escaped the fate of their fellow Valyrians by fleeing to the island of Dragonstone just years before the Doom. When the Doom eventually fell on Valyria, it reduced the most powerful kingdom in the history of the known world to mere rubble in hours. The Valyrians, however, did not get their powers from dragon riding alone. They mined for precious gems and other resources within the 14 Flames, a chain of active volcanoes that lie along the Valyrian Peninsula. When the Doom eventually fell, it set off a chain reaction erupting all 14 of these volcanoes, sending fire that burned so hot and rose so high that even dragons burned. Every hill for 500 miles also exploded, filling the air with ash and smoke and fire. Earthquakes destroyed palaces, temples, and towns, while lakes boiled or turned to acid. The 14 Flames, the fiery mountains of Valyria, sent molten rock 1,000 feet into the air, and red clouds rained down dragonglass. The cataclysm fragmented the very landscape of Valyria itself, turning what was once one solid continent into a bunch of tiny different islands as the ground cracked beneath them and the sea rushed in from both sides. The sea which replaced it is now known as the Smoking Sea, one of the most dangerous places in the known world, and a place that sailors very rarely go. The cataclysm had some unforeseen consequences as well, which would be felt east of Valyria in the Isle of Cedars, where the colony of Velos and Gazi were both destroyed by a massive tsunami caused by the breaking of the Valyrian Peninsula. Many tend to believe that the Doom was a natural calamity caused by the eruption of the 14 Flames, although some Septons tend to speculate that maybe the Valyrians delved too deep into the Seven Hells and paid the price because of it. Some also believe that the Doom was caused by the curse of Garin the Grey, a legendary figure from the Rhoyne. Some even believe that it was R'hllor's fires who brought on the Doom. Another theory is that the Doom wasn't as natural as people believe. It is said, on top of conquering dragons and mining the 14 Flames, that the Valyrians were also very adept at blood magic as well, and that apparently the blood mages that were maintaining the 14 Flames were potentially assassinated, causing the chain reaction to begin in the first place. These mages were said to be in control of the pressure of the 14 Flames, and that once they were assassinated, there was no one left to vent the pressure, causing them to erupt. And if that was the case, the only question that remains is whose hand was behind the assassination. And although there are a ton of fan theories as to who could be behind the assassination, I tend to think that there are two potential options here. The first being the Faceless Men. The Faceless Men were said to have been slaves who escaped the mines of Old Valyria and fled to go form the free city of Braavos. We hear one Faceless Man say that the Valyrian masters were, quote, given the gift, with the gift of course referring to death, as the Faceless Men worship the god of death. Is it possible that the Faceless Men, after forming the free city of Braavos, returned to Old Valyria to seek revenge on their former captors? Or could there be another hand at play here? The other option I think could potentially be a possibility is the Targaryens. The Targaryens were far from the most powerful house in Valyria. In fact, their house was known to be one of the more minor dragon-riding houses on the continent. 12 years before the Doom fell, a member of House Targaryen known as Daenys the Dreamer reportedly had a vision of the coming of the Doom long before it happened, and in response to this, her father, Aenar Targaryen, fled the Valyrian freehold for the island of Dragonstone, a small Valyrian outpost off the coast of Westeros, where they became the only dragon riders left in the known world. Was it the vision of Daenys the Dreamer that saved House Targaryen from extinction? Or could that be one giant fable to deflect suspicion from the real truth? As we've previously stated, the Targaryens were far from the most powerful house within the freehold of Valyria. Yet, after the Doom, they became not only the most powerful, but the only dragon riders left in the known world. Could the Targaryens have been behind the assassinations of the mages within the 14 Flames? Could they have been the ones who caused the Doom of Valyria to become the last living dragon riders in the known world, hence becoming much, much more powerful? At the end of the day, your guess is as good as mine, but it does make you wonder. One thing we do know, something, be it natural or unnatural, caused the 14 Flames to violently erupt, sending a chain reaction throughout the peninsula of Valyria, and ultimately bringing the most advanced civilization in the history of the known world to its knees within the span of a single day. And with it, thousands of years of history and knowledge that is forever lost to time, like the art of making Valyrian steel, the art of fused stone, the otherworldly architecture that the Valyrians were known for, and of course, dragon riding. The Valyrians managed to rise up from simple shepherd folk to the most advanced civilization in the history of the known world, an empire that went on to conquer almost all of Essos and lasted for thousands of years, gone in the blink of an eye. Now all that remains is the haunted ruins of Old Valyria and the smoking sea that rushed within. A sea that is filled with volcanoes and smoking stacks of rock. It is said to boil and smoke, and be haunted by demons. Over the years, a few would-be conquerors did attempt to go into Old Valyria and try and claim it for their own, none of which returned or were ever heard from again. The Tigers, a political party in Volantis, sent a fleet to reclaim Valyria, but the ships disappeared in the smoking sea, never to be heard from again. Even the ancient Lannisters attempted to sail to Old Valyria. King Tommen II of House Lannister lost their Valyrian steel longsword Brightboar while he attempted to sail to Old Valyria, along with his entire fleet, and ultimately his life. Many years later, in 292 AC, Garron Lannister would attempt to sail to Old Valyria with the intention of finding their Valyrian steel sword Brightboar, but Garron also disappeared and was never heard from again. Overall, the Doom of Valyria would go down as one of the greatest cataclysms in the history of the known world, one that scholars, maesters, and septons still argue the origin of to this day. But that is going to do it for Part 2 in our The Rise and Fall of Old Valyria series. Be sure to tune in for Part 3 where we go over the aftermath of the Doom of Valyria during a period of time in Essos that is referred to as the Century of Blood. And that is going to do it for us today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit a like on your way out, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications as well to stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the next one.
King in the North!
Dracarys.
I will hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.